So the U.S. is once again needlessly throwing money at Israel, and this depressed me more so than usually because this is a usual occurrence. This is nothing special. They do this type of shit all the time, especially when it comes to Israel in particular. So first and foremost, I want to read a little bit of an article that details the situation. And next, I want to talk about an issue that has spurred up among the online left. But here we go. So the House approves $1 billion for Israel's Iron Dome defense system. The House on Thursday easily approved a bill to provide funding for Israel's Iron Dome after it was removed from a separate bill to prevent a government shutdown and suspend the nation's borrowing limit. The $1 billion in funding allocated for the aerial defense system had initially been included in the must-pass legislation that the House considered earlier in the week, but the provision was removed from the final version to appease a group of progressives who said they would sink the legislation unless that funding was struck from it. And as you can see, they're passing it anyway. The bill now goes to the Senate, where it is unclear when it will get a vote, but if it gets a vote, it's going to pass. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer created a separate bill to bring the floor to the floor Thursday under suspension, which means it bypassed the normal rules required to pass the bill and required 2/3 majority vote to pass. The final vote, listen to this. This is how in lockstep the politicians are in terms of the subject that is Israel. The final vote was 420 to 9 with 2 present. 8 Democrats and 1 Republican voted against the bill. The Iron Dome aerial defense system is designed to intercept rockets mid-air by targeting them and firing interceptor missiles to destroy them before they can kill civilians living in Israel. It was initially developed by Israel's defense technology company, Rafael, but the system has since been heavily sponsored by the United States. As of November 2020, the United States had provided $1.6 billion to Israel for Iron Dome batteries, interceptors, co-production costs, and general maintenance, according to Congressional Research Service. Now, you may be listening to this thinking, why the fuck are we funding their defense systems? Why are we providing them funds that they can pay for? Israel is a rich country, a wealthy country. They have the money to do this. Why are we needlessly throwing away cash to pay for their defense? And defense from what? Before I answer that question, let me continue reading. The legislation specifically will provide funding to replace missile interceptors that were used during the heavy fighting with Hamas in May. Oh, the heavy fighting where Israel decimated those people as they usually do. Now, of course, there were casualties on both sides, but where do the majority of the casualties lie? With Hamas, with the Palestinians, with the people that don't have Iron Dome. Thank you. According to a news release on the legislation, the funding is consistent with the 2016 Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Israel, which commits the United States to providing additional assistance to replenish the Iron Dome after periods of fighting to allow Israel to continue to defend itself from attack. Now, Rashida Tlaib came out against this, and she casted a no vote, and she said that she planned to cast a no vote beforehand, and we'll get into that and who else said no in just a second. Ilhan Omar also said no, but we'll touch on that in just a second. But I want to read you something from somebody. Democratic Rep. Alyssa Slotkin, this is a Democrat who serves on the Armed Service Committee, characterized opposition from members of her own party to this funding as devoid of substance and irresponsible. And House Appropriations Chairman Rosa DeLauro, this is my favorite one right here, expressed her support of the funding, saying in a statement, "The United States' commitment to the security of our friend and ally Israel is ironclad. Replenishing interceptors used to protect Israel from attacks is our legal and moral responsibility." What the fuck? Huh? This is absolutely insane. I mean, priorities all screwed up. Let me put something in a perspective for you. I was watching a video of Glenn Greenwald's, which I recommend you seek out and find and watch as well, because it's very enlightening on this. He posed a very interesting proposition, which isn't difficult to discern when looking at this situation. Millions of people in Israel, citizens, enjoy a better standard of education and a better standard of healthcare than millions of Americans in this country. Yet we're throwing money at them to help fund their Iron Dome instead of helping the people here that are struggling. The federal minimum wage isn't a living wage. Unionization rates are at an all-time low. And these big industries and CEOs, they're constantly hostile to unions and unionizing. Millions of people, tens of millions of these people in this country don't have health care. I mean, and a lot of people that do have health care are underinsured. There's so many problems. 45 million people, 47 trillion dollars in student loan debt. There's a debt crisis, not just among the students, but among other kinds of debt as well. So many issues. We're constantly committing atrocities in foreign nations. We just pulled out of Afghanistan, but what about Iraq? What about Syria? We're bombing Somalia. It's as if when it comes to Israel, the issues that we face here at home don't matter. And that's what bothers me the most about this. I don't have some uncanny disdain towards Israel. No, that's not what it is. But the funny thing is, in polite society, when you come out against things like needlessly throwing billions of dollars at Israel, they call you anti-Semite. You're anti-Semitic. You hate Jewish people if that's what you think. And in my mind, what I'm espousing is incredibly reasonable. Why are we giving money away needlessly to fund the defense mechanism of another country when they can fund it themselves, when we have over 600,000 homeless people, when the eviction moratorium have expired and evictions are happening on a daily basis and people are getting put out on their ass, and we're giving money away to fund Israel's Iron Dome? For fuck's sakes, man. And now I'll touch on the final part that had the online left up in a stir. So AOC voted present after firstly voting no, and she changed her vote to present. And in that Glenn Greenwald video that I referenced earlier, he brought up the fact that she berated and reprimanded Tulsi Gabbard for voting present on Donald Trump's impeachment trials. And she just voted present here. And he also brought up how she voted present. And I actually made a video on this of her and other members of the squad. I believe it was Rashida Tlaib and Jamal Bowman that voted present when it came to giving more money to the Capitol Police. You know, they had the power. You know, they didn't really have the power here with this Iron Dome vote. But with that vote, they had the power to go against Nancy Pelosi, who threw billions of dollars at the Capitol Police after a year of saying that Black Lives Mattered, after a year of saying defund the police. They allowed more money, billions of dollars, to be thrown at the police. So he pointed out the hypocrisy there. But also, I mean, what this is and what he stated in his video, I mean, it's cowardly. It's cowardly. Why not stand with your fellow congresspeople who actually has a spine and vote no? Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, who else voted no? Tlaib, Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Cori Bush, and Marie Newman. They all voted no, along with that one Republican, I'm not sure who that is, but Jamal Bowman voted yes. That was a disappointment. But yeah, AOC voted present, very cowardly, and she's being called out on Twitter, and rightfully so. But I want to give you a couple more interesting facts before I end this video off. At this point, I'm just kind of rambling. Over the last decade, the United States has provided $1.7 billion to the Iron Dome. In the current fiscal cycle, lawmakers appropriated $73 million for the Iron Dome. That makes the $1 billion in supplemental funding for the system amount to roughly 14 times spending increase, according to a Tuesday tweet by Seth Bender. Look, man, they're just ridiculous amounts of money they're giving to Israel, and this isn't the only thing that they're funding that they could be using that money to help people here at home. You know, America's first never applies in certain situations. They'll come out, and these Republicans are the biggest hypocrites of it. You know, America first this, America first that. Why not give people health care, a right to education, jobs, higher wages, and other things before needlessly giving money away to fund some other rich country's defense system that they can pay for themselves?